All right, Emma, did you have anything you want to kind of say to kick us off here?
Yeah, so this webinar is our Northstar Partner highlight. I'm Emma. I'm an American Connection Corps member serving with Generation West Virginia. And then we also have two of our other American Connection Corps members. We have Max and Cassie, who are going to speak on this webinar today. So Annie is going to talk a little bit about Generation West Virginia and just start us off.
I think most of you all are probably familiar with Generation West Virginia, founded in 2007. We're a statewide nonprofit really focused on kind of different ways that we can create the conditions that young people can have the skills and opportunities they need to stay and have well-paying careers here in the Mountain State. We have four different programs that we run. We've got a Career Connector, which is a mix of a job board. We do a program called the Generational Talent Search. We have a resume bank and can do kind of resume job coaching stuff through that program. I think this might be the one that most people know about. We have, again, our job board is very active, focused in West Virginia, and we require salary transparency. We have our fellowship program. This is a professional development program for kind of early stage career folks across the state. I just had the opportunity to pop into one of the sessions for the Morgantown, their first in-person meeting this year. And it's a great program. It basically brings this group of folks together in a couple different spots in person during the course of the fellowship, as well as virtual sessions around, professional development leadership and getting to see some of the really exciting stuff that communities across the state are doing. We have New Force, which started out as a software training program, fully remote, kind of to meet the software development needs that we saw. This one's been around for a little while, shifted over to data analytics the last couple of years, again, due to, shifting trends in industry. And this program is actually sunsetting this year because we like to say we've worked ourselves out of the job. I think the community college systems and some of the traditional education folks have kind of filled the gap when it comes to the data analytics piece. The software development space is a little bit different, but we're very proud of the program. We've got our final cohort going through right now, and they're doing some really good work. So keep an eye on that. And we have our broadband program, and we started out doing really specific infrastructure, broadband infrastructure technical assistance. Pretty dry. John knows a lot about that. Super important. We realized that without that baseline connection to the broader world, it becomes really hard for young people to get the skills and opportunities they need to succeed, whether that's through education or jobs or remote work, starting their own businesses, all of those kinds of things. And obviously, this is an issue that touches way more than just young people in the state. It affects our entire communities. In the last couple of years, we've really shifted. Emma, you can go to the next slide. We've really shifted to focus not just on the infrastructure piece, but also looking at this digital access, digital inclusion, adoption work. Some of you are probably aware we have a large chunk of funding coming through the BEAD program for broadband infrastructure development. And, very firmly believe, and I've seen this across the country, that, this digital inclusion work, making sure people have the skills to use the internet, can afford the service, have the devices they need to use it, and then are able to actually access those, educational or career opportunities, is going to be a critical insurance policy to make sure that we're maintaining and sustaining those networks once they're built. So this is a big focus for us. Also want to share just a quick plug. We did officially launch this year our West Virginia Connected Communities Network. We've had a lot of individual conversations and steering committees going on with folks all across the state. We kind of formalized that this year. We have a quarterly statewide meeting that happens. The next one will be May 26th. More information. I'll drop the link in the chat when I'm done talking if anyone wants to hop on that. And then we also have a series of regional meetings as well, that we're very excited about too, that kind of continue the slightly more local conversations around what projects are people thinking of, where is their capacity, where can we, especially in today's funding environment, add a little bit of capacity to someone who's already doing really good work and be able to kind of sustain and keep this stuff going while we come up with alternative funding strategies. So really excited to have you here. I'm going to pass you back over to Emma. And go ahead and take it away, Emma.
So, the purpose of this webinar today is to highlight our Northstar partners across the state and the great work they are doing. And some key topics that we're going to go over are some digital skills landscape and then our partner spotlight. So, like I said, it's me and then Cassie and Max going to talk today. Max works for Coalfield Development and Cassie's at the Upshur County Public Library. So to start out with our digital landscape, I wanted to just talk briefly about our Northstar program, and it's been our pilot project. We have outgrowth from community planning and meeting digital skills needs, and it's facilitated by ACC, and we have 5 partners, 27 instructors, and 279 learners.
Emma, what is ACC?
Oh, it's American Connection Corps. And then why digital literacy matters. We will go over a few key reasons digital literacy matters. It's for workforce readiness, telehealth access, education and learning, and bridging the digital divide. So, for workforce readiness, most jobs require digital skills, such as email and scheduling is usually online, remote meeting platforms, and then job searches are online, like creating a resume is usually remote now, completing online applications, virtual interviews, and then uploading documents needed in the hiring process. And then also, there's a lot of growth sectors that are depending on technology, such as healthcare, broadband and IT, advanced manufacturing and education, and then you need to be adaptable in those changing environments. So for telehealth access, accessing care from home, rural areas are further from hospitals. This way you can connect to specialists from home, and then digital literacy helps with understanding how to navigate these telehealth platforms, and then managing access to the telehealth portal where you can get your prescription refills, test results, appointment scheduling, and messaging providers. And then we have education and learning, access to learning materials, online textbooks, educational videos, and online learning platforms are used a lot of times. A lot of times there's virtual classrooms now and online assignments in grade school and college, and then communicating with your school system as well. And then bridging the digital divide. Digital literacy programs help to bridge the divide between older adults, low-income families, and new computer users who face the greatest barriers. So now we're going to go into our partner spotlights. We're going to start out with them going over their organization, what their role is there, and then any success stories they want to share. So to start, we're going to start with Max. So take it away.
Hey everybody, my name is Max Nibert. I'm an American Connection Corps member with Emma and Cassie, serving at Coalfield Development. The office is in Huntington, but we have business everywhere. We go to Mingo and Wayne and all over kind of that southwestern portion of the state. We're a workforce development organization primarily, so our kind of ethos is rebuilding the Appalachian economy from the ground up, and we do that by going into communities and hosting trainings. And that's really what I do. We have a program called Path Trainings. It's professional accelerated training and hiring. And basically, we'll go into a community, we'll host a training, we'll kind of just get the word out, and folks will get a daily stipend, and they attend the training. They earn all these certifications, usually in some kind of trade field. And then at the very end, there's a job fair where we try to get them connected with a local employer. And none of that sounds particularly internet tech savvy. But a lot of what we actually do during the course of those trainings is online, and you have to be digitally literate to access it. And we do Northstar courses to try to get folks up to speed, because that is a very important skill in terms of being employable in 2026. So that's what I do, and that is kind of how Coalfield fits into this giant digital literacy puzzle. And yeah, that's all.
Thanks. Now we'll go to Cassie.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cassie. I am also an American Connection Corps member with Emma and Max. I am serving under the Upshur County Public Library. We are a very small dot in Upshur County. What I try to do is bring the digital literacy to the community. We are a very rural area, um, and we have a lot that do not have the infrastructure for digital literacy to learn it. So we are kind of the outreach to them. We try to bring them into our areas or go to them if possible, being a very rural area, and use Northstar as one of the big programs to try to teach them the basics of digital skills, which is mostly what I work on. We have a population of a lot of the older generation, and teaching them just how to function in the society today, how they can just live their everyday life and learn what they need to. I service Upshur County at multiple locations, including our senior center. We have branched out with the library a little bit into Lewis County to try to gather more in and branch out to more rural areas for skill training. And it's done a lot. We start from building resumes for some to teaching how to get on the web to check their, health stuff online. So it feel like I go from one spectrum to the next. I have a lot of younger generation coming in now wanting to learn before college. So that's what I do.
Thanks. So now we're gonna go over some questions that Cassie and Max are gonna answer. So the first one is, in working with your past trainees or your library patrons, what other barriers are they facing, and do they have devices and transportation? And whoever wants to go first, you can go first.
I'll go. I don't care. You can go. It don't matter to me. Um, I would say it's funny you mentioned transportation. That is by far the number one barrier that I see, at least in our kind of service area, like southwestern West Virginia. I would say arguably even more than digital literacy. When we do, interviews and screenings and all that for the participants in a path training, I would say typically I end up having to turn away 30 to 50% of people that would love to be there, that need work, that need money in their pockets because they don't have a way to get there. Because it's a very rural area. Maybe they live 30 minutes to an hour away. They don't have a car. And a lot of them try to make it work, Well, like my cousin lives in this place and he can come pick me up and then he can bring me there and then I can take the bus home and then do it. And it doesn't work out because there is not, it's very difficult in the modern day to be able to afford a vehicle, and also the public transportation infrastructure in rural West Virginia is obviously not fantastic. And that really breaks my heart because there are a lot of people that I can tell would love to be there and just can't because they don't have the money to buy a car right now. And that sucks. But yeah, that's definitely the biggest barrier that I see.
I will have to agree with Max quite a bit on that. Upshur County is located close to the heart of West Virginia, where you would see it. And I run into that issue quite a bit as well. Being so rural with the lack of infrastructure for our transportation, it's been difficult. A few partners that we have worked with have a lot of participants within their programs that want the training, along with would benefit highly from the training. But being able for them to get to our training has been a big issue. We have tried to expand out into other locations, into more rural areas, which has been very nice and very helpful. Also, get a few participants out in those areas that will show up every time they're ready to learn, and that's their only opportunity. So we do lack in the transportation as well, but we also very much lack an infrastructure for internet in general. We don't have the type of landscape to allow internet in some areas for sure. Um, and being that most of the Upshur County population is below poverty, we run into no devices as well. A lot of the patrons I deal with, they're not able to afford their own devices. So we have a lot of barriers that are put up that we are slowly climbing past and trying to do as well as we can with what we got and hopefully move forward.
I see Sharon's you have your hand raised. Did you want to ask a question or a follow-up?
Yeah, no, not so much question as a comment, as the transportation is huge for us as well. We're in Wetzel and Tyler counties. We had an initiative here with 5 counties, and we had agreement. We had the county commissioners. Everybody was in agreement. Then the beginning of the year, when funding started to be snatched away and all of that good stuff. We're not sure exactly where it stands, but transportation is a statewide issue, and it is a huge deal. And until that gets addressed, that's an infrastructure issue. So until that gets addressed as one of the things, we're going to be spinning our wheels. As much as I absolutely hate what's his name, this Musk guy, and his Starlink. Okay, as much as I dislike him, that is an opportunity to at least get internet out to rural communities until we figure out somebody else to monopolize the area. But we're going to be spinning our wheels. I'm just saying, until these infrastructure things get settled. So how do we push that forward at the state? You got to write to people. You got to call them, the people who represent, and let them know that these are issues where some of these other stuff they're talking about are not so much for us. Just saying.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Sharon, for sharing that. I agree. It's been really interesting in this process of working with folks doing this kind of work, how often, those, again, like very basic things, like being able to get to where you need to go to do the things you need to do come up. Yeah, awesome. All right, Emma, go ahead.
Our next question is, how do your programs build the confidence necessary for a senior or hesitant learner to even take the first steps?
Cassie, you go first on this one. You got.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna jump ahead of Max here on this one. So it is very difficult, as I said before. The generation I deal with is an older generation. Um, so it has been kind of difficult I feel like it's a lot of trust gaining when it comes to the generation, the barriers I face with them. But it's been also as in getting them to stay, getting them to want to learn it has been difficult, but you've got to come to their perspective on things. They Everyday life things. I've used couponing quite a bit because they do love it and it's becoming digital. So I've pulled them in with, let me teach you how to digital coupon. Let me show you that you can still save money with your digital skills. Like it's completely possible. And I've actually had some, mid-age ones that are ready to join the workforce again. And they've wanted certificates and resumes, and I've slowly taught them how to do resumes and things like that. So I feel like meeting every group at their certain need has really got me to keep them strong and keep them going. It's difficult sometimes, but you just got to find that little nick they're looking for.
Yeah, I think in a similar way. First of all, I like what you said about finding some niche that they need to know how to operate and using that as the basis for all of it. But also, I think, at least in my experience with path trainees, you can't be afraid to handhold a little bit in the beginning. Like there was this guy Jeremy. He was a path trainee months ago, and he wasn't that old. He was 40s, like mid 40s. Never used a computer, not once in his entire life had he ever used a computer. And he had a flip phone, which is cool. But I was also like, when we sat down to do Northstar, to do some like we do durable skills and credentialing through Marshall University, and obviously that's all online. So sitting down with him, he couldn't take a course on how to use a computer because he didn't know how to get to the course to use the computer. So I literally had to sit there and be like, all right, Jeremy, here's the power button. You turn it on with this. Here's where you put in the password. You use this keyboard to do these things. And then you go to the browser and then you pull this up. And I think not making somebody feel less than or feel stupid for not knowing things that seem really obvious to people who have been using computers for years. That's kind of my philosophy about it. You gotta be there for the very little incremental things in the beginning so that they can kind of get that ball rolling.
So, going off of that, what challenges have you guys had getting people to understand the importance of the digital literacy?
All right. Um, Understanding the importance has been difficult in a sense, for sure. I'll have to go with Max, to kind of feed on that. There's a lot of hand holding that has to be done. You got to understand, like he said, where they're coming from. Um, they like to be taught. They really do. But getting them to understand the need has been difficult. Um, it's just it's just one of those things. I feel like it's depends on the patron that comes in the library or the member that needs um to find work or something. I feel like your first and foremost is sitting down, getting to know somebody very well, getting to make a connection with them personally, uh, does good for every aspect of it. You build that trust, you build that relationship, you then gain their trust to listen, to understand, let you explain. And I think the biggest issue that I've run into, the biggest barrier that I have to cross sometimes is gaining the trust coming into a county or a community, especially in the rural areas, the very rural communities that are pretty closed off and close knit to each other, is gaining that trust and trying to get them to understand where you're coming from in a helping aspect.
I think also, in my experience, taking it very circumstantially and presenting it very circumstantially is important. And by that I mean it's very interesting to me that I kind of ended up being in a small way an advocate for digital literacy and things like that. I don't really like the internet. Like I don't use the internet that much. I use it at work and then I go home and kind of put the phone away and just go do some things and then get back on it when I go to work the next day. And whether it's a net positive or a net negative for humanity is a more philosophical debate. But um, I try to connect with people on that because I think, especially in Appalachia, especially in rural Appalachia, there is a lot of sentiment like, well, I've never needed it until now. We didn't need it when I was a kid, so why should I have to learn it? Like, why are people trying to force these things on me, or why is society trying to force these things on me? And I try to connect with them on that and be like, hey, I get it. I don't like it. I don't use it, but the circumstance that you are in is that you are looking for this desired outcome and using the internet to your advantage right now, the way that the world is set up is the only thing that's going to get you there. So let me help you help yourself. Let the internet help you help yourself in this specific circumstance, and then try to gradually, grease the wheels and get them to lighten up a little bit about it. And I got like a 60% success rate with that. So
So, also going off of what you guys were just talking about, technology can be intimidating or even feel like a burden to some people. So what is one way you've successfully helped a skeptical learner move from I don't need this to I can do this?
Max keeps shoving me first here, so we're gonna go. So I will agree with Max on that. And I'll agree with Max on a lot. I am not a huge internet person myself. I relate with that a lot with my the patrons that I deal with at the library. I'm one of those people that could live off grid, be content. That's the way I am. And that's the way a lot of the people that I face every day are. I don't need it, like Max said. I'm good. And it's one of those things that it can be difficult getting them to understand. I use the aspect dealing with a lot of elderly, as in, let me make it easier for you in everyday life. Um, no, you can go to the store, you can pick up a prescription. You want to drive that far, you want to use your car, you want to use your gas, or you just want to relax at home and let's get them shipped to you. Um, so that's a lot of things that I try to bring in for them to understand a little bit better is I really want things to be made easier on you. I want your day-to-day life to be simpler and less chaotic for you. So it looks into the aspect of let me see their individual needs. Um, Doing forms online is a big one that I try to really help them with. Like, I want to save you time. I want to save you time to enjoy the rest of it. You may not love the internet. You may not ever want to use it. That's fine. Let me teach you how to get something done in 5 minutes instead of 30-minute trip out and then back home. So that's how I kind of go at it and look at them for it is let me save you time to enjoy it more, to enjoy your day more, and use the internet for 5 minutes so that you can spend the next, 4 or 5 hours spending time with your grandkids or going to the park. Like, make it easier on yourself. Like, let me help you make your day better, enjoyable outdoors with your family without the internet.
I would echo that heavily. And like looking at it like that is important, I think, and presenting it like that is important. Like we're not talking about heavy nitty-gritty internet use among, maybe an aging population where it's like, okay, here we're going to teach you how to use social media. We're going to teach you how to integrate this into your life as fully as possible. It's not that. It's, hey, you go on this website and like you said, you can get prescription drugs shipped to you instead of having to go to the place and then come back. Or hey, you can set up this appointment to go to the grocery store if you're an older person and they'll load up your groceries for you in your car and then you can go home and like you, presenting it as a utilitarian function as opposed to a overhaul of a lifestyle, especially in a place where rural identity is so prevalent and people think that the internet and people that are really with technology are fundamentally opposed to the way that they live. Those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. You don't have to fully brush off and do away with the internet. You can use it a little bit to gain a lot in a world where everything is built around that. So yeah, just presenting it as like, here is what it can do for you very specifically, this thing, go do it and stop being stubborn. Um, yeah, that's the way to go, I think.
And then what do you guys find people are most eager to learn?
I'll take this one first too. So, depending on the area in my even smaller county, I'm pretty sure we have a population of like 24,000. The issue is I want to say it's under 5,000 are actually located within our one incorporated town. So most of our population is in our very rural area spread out through different areas. And it depends on what area I am in. So if I'm in a more rural community on one end of our county, the opportunities that they have out there are very lacking when it comes to their infrastructure, their skills, any of that. So I need to feed off them differently than I would someone that's living in our city, our unincorporated town that have more opportunity for other things when it comes digital wise. So I will have to say it all depends on who I'm talking to. Um, and what their location is for exactly what I'm looking for.
I think I'm pretty biased about this one because I'm working strictly in a workforce development framework. But I would definitely say just people get so excited when we're in that classroom portion of the training. We do a hands-on portion, and they're always excited for that. They always want to get their hands dirty, and I love that. But when we're in the classroom portion, people get so excited about gaining certifications, about any job-related training. Um, and that just makes me think about, there are so many people these days that talk about nobody wants to work, nobody wants to do this, nobody wants to do that. I think that's the biggest load of junk I've ever heard in my life. Like I meet people every day that are so excited to work and have been waiting for an opportunity. And when the internet can be used as a vehicle to attain that more easily, that in my particular circumstance is where I think it really shines. So.
And then how do you guys go about retaining participants?
So for me, retaining participants can be very difficult. I have participants that are super excited, like Max said, they are super excited to learn, they're super excited to do it. But retaining them and keeping them going is very difficult. I have a lot of my elderly population, which is what I deal with a lot, that get frustrated. They are so, just this is too much. I can't do this. And a few of them I've kept hanging on, slowed it down, simplified it, done really well with that. Um, I run into a lot of the transportation issue on, returning clients. Uh, it's when you don't have access to transportation, I run into the huge problem of keeping people going. Um, I do have like 5 or 6 participants that are loyal to a T. They absolutely love to learn. We have fed off so much. Northstar is like blowing out the window for them. They're like, I've done this. This is awesome. I completed it. Let's do some more. Um, so, keeping patrons, keeping the people excited and interested, um, is hard in a rural area, especially. But I think, you know, I'm doing the best I can getting this going and super excited for them. And I have some that just make it all worth it. Everyone that doesn't come back, I have some that are just super excited for what they've been learning and is super excited to learn more. And it makes me feel good, that they are so content and so happy and ready. So,
I saw Sharon ask the question. I'll hop on this one and then I'll get to the next one. Sharon said, "Are there concerns expressed about the security of their personal information?" Yes, all the time. Especially with older folks that it's kind of their first exposure to the internet. I actually just today we have a training starting tomorrow, and we enroll people with like state programs, federal programs, assistance programs. So we need all kinds of documentation, not even digitally, but we need birth certificate and ID and pay stubs and all that kind of thing to get people enrolled in these trainings. And then on top of that, when you do ask for things like that in a digital capacity, there is a lot of hesitation just because, there's so many ways I think in somebody's mind that isn't accustomed to the internet that could go wrong. But like Cassie keeps talking about, I think that's just a matter of small bids for connection and for trust, and just over time, as you start to get them more integrated and get them more comfortable, I think that naturally kind of subsides. But up front, absolutely. And to be honest with you, I don't really know how to solve that. But as far as retaining participants, I'm kind of fortunate that I don't have to do that really. We have these classes, and there's typically 15 to 20 participants. And they go digitally, they go pretty hard for however long it is, 5 or 6 weeks. And then as far as my involvement, that's kind of where it ends. I make sure before the training is over to make sure they know, login credentials and things like that, how to access it from home, because there are a lot of them that want to continue and want to, level up skill wise so that they can be more employable. A lot of it is around the lens of employability, but uh, I don't know. I think people have a fundamental desire to learn, and I think I see that a lot. Um, but it definitely can be difficult to keep the engagement going that somebody gets when they check their email for the first time or something like that. It's hopefully not diminishing returns from that point on. I try to express that.
Yeah, the more time you check your email, the less fun it gets. I actually have a question too, kind of building off of what y'all just talked about, is also, do you all see anything that, either your learners or your patrons are either particularly kind of like curious or nervous about learning about, thinking about things like, does AI come up? Is that something people even know is a thing? That we talk about some of these new technologies that are dramatically changing the way that people interact with the internet, and they're kind of inescapable now. So like, are you seeing that with folks yet, or are folks not aware of it in kind of like the general population yet?
So, on my side, not, I would say they are not even aware. Um, we lack so much infrastructure and lack very much behind on the tech world. Um, that AI is not familiar. I actually just had a patron come in a couple weeks ago and was looking at a new cell phone. Well, the brand new cell phones are not just our simple AI of Gemini and things. They're a little more complicated than that, which was super scary to her. She was terrified of every bit of it. And it's because there's no information. I feel like a lot of my patrons, a lot of the people that I speak to on a daily basis are just so behind the level that it will be quite a while before they are even up there to understand it. When you come to your everyday citizens, for sure, there's just not there.
I would agree with that. Personally, just to give a disclaimer, I think we need to put that genie back in the bottle, man. We gotta do what we can. I don't think it's a good thing. I don't know. Everybody's getting real reliant real quick. But putting my personal opinions aside, I would say that they're kind of tangentially aware of it. Like I get a lot of questions when we start doing digital literacy work from people that it might be their first time ever working on a computer, but it seems like they're aware of it more as a concept and as like a buzzword and as a headline rather than like, here's this thing that exists that you can use for these purposes. And there's a lot of hesitation, and I get that because there's a lot of hesitation in me as well. Um, and I think I try to kind of not to brush off their concerns, but I try to dispel that as soon as possible because the more that the concept of the internet is wrapped up in their head as something that is trying to steal your information and change the way you live and fundamentally uproot your life and make you feel ostracized from society because you don't know how to use it. The more that those things kind of coalesce and become one problem, the less open they are to using the internet for their specific purpose. So yeah, they're aware of it and they're very curious about it, but I try not to even go there.
Sorry, I might have one more because this is so interesting to me. Um, have you guys run into like information literacy as an issue? That's the thing. That's one thing that I think about a lot, especially with AI. Even again, you mentioned Gemini, right? Like you open up a Google search now. I've had to have many conversations even with my parents, like, okay, the top stuff that you're seeing is no longer actually results. Like those are not, that's not real. You have to check it. It might be wrong. And like that's such a wild thing to feel like you have to say to somebody, just love y'all's perspective on that too.
Okay. I actually just had this conversation the other day, not with a patron, actually with my own family because we homeschool and researching. So I've had to explain to a sense that I'm kind of with Max that I think AI needs closed to the general public. They don't need access to it, okay? Without the skills to use it, do not try. But it's one of those things that if I have someone building a resume right now. They are not extremely proper speaking. They're not quite sure how to use their words and things like that. So I will say I have introduced them to a little bit of the AI sense, as in, look, this can help you make a better understanding, a more professional sounding sentence or something in that aspect. But it's terrifying. To say the least. It is absolutely terrifying. I tell people to fact check everything. Do not like if even when you use it for your resume, please reread 18 million times if you have to. And that's a big reason why, as of right now, I do not, especially for my level of learners, recommend any kind of AI is without them having the understanding that it may not be true what you're reading. It also may sound good, but because it repeated the same thing 12 times. So it's always one of those things like if you're going to venture into it and you're going to explore it, be very, very careful, which can be hard to explain to an elderly person, honestly. But they do great, and honestly, most of them are terrified of it, and they're like, okay, well, just like I wouldn't use Wikipedia back in my day, I'm not going to try to use AI. Thank you.
I think no matter how, and I can't help but taint this with my own perspective, but like, no matter how advanced AI becomes, no matter how integrated it is in daily life, it is still a fundamentally human skill to be able to discern fact from crap, basically. And it is very concerning to me in the work related arena, like workforce development and digital literacy arena. It's concerning to me that AI is being treated as a substitute for critical thinking. That is, I think, about the biggest mistake that we could make philosophy wise when you approach that. Just because, like I said, no matter how advanced it becomes, there will still come a time if you are a functional adult working a job that has any semblance of a level of responsibility, there's going to come a time where you have to research and sort things out and decide what sources are valuable and decide what sources are biased. And especially in today's world, I mean, everything that you read on social media, especially, but now even on the internet or from AI or whatever, it's tainted and warped and twisted by somebody else's perspective. And they're trying to get you to adopt that perspective without even really thinking about it and just accept it as fact. So yeah, all that is to say, AI, some people think it's cool, some people think it's useful, but it will never be a substitute for the fundamental skills that we possess as human beings. And I think maybe the most important of those is critical thinking.
I feel like I want to add not only critical thinking, Max, but creativity is a big one that I also do with AI. I wish that creativity is what he said. It's a human thing. We are the creativity. And I feel like we need to feed off that more than allowing, it to try to take over that aspect, especially with all the new characters. I don't even know how to say it that we're seeing online and everything else. Like, not only critical thinking, but I just wanted to point out that creativity is another big one to me that I feel that we need to keep on hold tight.
Yeah, that's such an interesting, I think, again, thank you for sharing your perspective on that, because I think it's such an interesting balance of like, Cassie, like you said, that can be a really helpful tool or an adaptive tool if someone's trying to learn how to structure a sentence in an appropriate way, or like what is a way that I could, you know, one application that we've used it, right, is if you're trying to do something, you've got something that's like full of jargon, right? You want it to be readable to just like a normal human being. Like, okay, how do I explain this concept? But it can definitely save time for those kinds of things. But there are a lot of risks in offloading those skills too, which is again so complicated when you're dealing with these beginner learners who are like, what is this device? How do I use it? How do I plug it in? The really interesting thing to have to be thinking about at the same time. All right, I'm sorry, Emma. I think I took over some questions here. Um,
I just have one last question, and it's just if you guys have any other comments that you or suggestions around the programs.
Oh man. Um, for somebody that's looking to integrate a program like that or use Northstar as a means to achieve those goals, I think I would just, I mean, I've said it before, but I would just preach patience. Like, you're teaching somebody to use the internet, but in teaching somebody to use the internet, it's a very human kind of thing. You make a sincere effort, it doesn't work out, you get disappointed, you get frustrated, especially when it feels like the whole world now uses the internet as a means to achieve every goal. I mean, you can't do anything without it. And if you can, it takes 4 times as long. Uh, so I think just being there for people, being very understanding, and trying to introduce a level of humanity to the experience of learning, that is fundamental.
The way I have to say it is if you're looking into a digital literacy program, my biggest takeaway would be is to on the ground running, be in the community, know their needs, know their wants, know exactly what you're getting into. There is so many programs on so many different levels within teaching digital literacy. Um, I've I use probably the bottom three tier of the 1,000 there is in my area, but I just recommend making the connections with your community members first, first and foremost, seeing what is needed, what are they wanting, because I promise you, they are wanting something. There's a lot of them out there that are wanting help. They're wanting something. They just don't have a voice to stand on, but be that voice for them. That's what I have to say.
Thanks, guys. Um, so we have a few classes or trainings. Max is starting his past trainings tomorrow, and then Cassie has her North Star classes March 24th, March 26th, March 27th, and March 31st. And then I also have a North Star class that I've been doing at the Mon County Senior Center. And then I have one tomorrow, and then March 31st. And does anybody have any questions?
Hello, my name is John Tuggle. I'm with the Region 4 Planning and Development Council, and Annie knows me real well. Yeah, and our region is a 5 county region. You're talking about rural. We've had 5 counties and 116,000 people total in 5 counties, so we're about as rural as you can get. Um, anyway, this has been extremely interesting. I've listened to all your whole talk, and it's what's so interesting about it is two young people talking about AI like it's evil. That's very interesting to hear. But I, there's not much time left here, bro. I've got a bunch of questions I like to pepper you with, but um, the main thing I'd like to ask you though is, and I deal with this directly a lot with elderly people, um, is training a trainer. In that, and when I say that is training an old person to train an old person, very, very much to where if you can train an old person that, and I'm 67, I'm old. So anyway, if you can train an elderly person to some really basic things like telemed, a little bit of getting on with the doctor, or just very simple things of ordering something from Amazon or something like that, that get it real easy, to where they are comfortable going to their friends and they're going to their friends, because the trust issue that you mentioned, that's that's I can't even do that hardly. It's hard to get anybody to trust the internet and trust technology. And that is what I would ask you is there much about training the trainer? Not only that, is training young people and like the service, your honor society kids and those type people that have community service, to do that with people that will trust them, older people that will trust them. Train them how to train those older people. Have you ever thought about that?
So I will step up because I have yet got to, I didn't mention this whole time, but I should have. I actually have a volunteer who is elderly. He is, I want to say in his 70s. Great guy. So I have actually, he does hold some of my classes. He is in the process. I have been working with him this whole time. And from that aspect, he has learned the basics. So what he is very much comfortable with, he has learned those basics and taken it with him in a lot of aspects. He is a retired preacher within our community, has a lot of touch base, and he's done fantastic, even being in his 70s. If he has a question as well, he will call me. He'll just ring me up on the cell phone and be like, "Hey, listen, I'm working with this person. How how do I do this so I can teach them this?" He is a willing learner. Now he is my only elderly that I have been able to reach out to and get to learn and train him. I've trained him so he can train others. I have a few other volunteers in the very rural areas that I don't have a trust with those communities. I made a trust within a small organization within that community. So, like a community building, a small little Lions Club or small little organization, the community trust, I kind of made a connection with one person within that, and I train them so that they can offer it to their community. I've done that in just my elderly and one other small little community so far, but I feel like making a connection with at least one person within that community can get it throughout that whole community that looks at you like you're an outsider. I hope that helped.
No, that's what I want to know, if you tried that, because I think really your focus could be more towards that than trying to get people in, because you can't get that trust from somebody off the street. It's a lot easier to go around the back way and get to them somehow. But anyway, you guys are doing great, and the barriers you talk about, we deal with them every darn day. It's those are very expensive barriers to make go away. So the thing to do is what you're doing. Try to work through the maze of getting there without spending you need a gazillion dollars to fix a transportation issue. I mean, that's all there is to it. So those type things are hard to fix, but you guys sound like you're doing a great job trying to maneuver around it. So I applaud you. It's awesome to hear you talk. It really is. I enjoyed every minute of it because of the way you're attacking this thing.
Okay, can I say something here? Just a second. John, you're younger than I am. So I've been on a personal computer since 1991. Okay, so long before most of y'all were born. I would be glad to teach these oldies, okay, how to use a computer. There's nothing to be afraid of. And Max, you have made some extraordinary points all along the way, and I'm with you on many of them, except I'm not afraid of AI, and I don't think anybody else should be either. This is where we're going. Okay, I learned how to use it. Humans put it together. Okay, there is no machine that's going to replace any of us. And if there are things that it can replace, then we learn new stuff. Okay, it's not just like the horse and buggy. The car was a threat. Okay, so thinking this is, there are jobs out there that we don't even know what they're going to look like because they haven't been created yet. So but the critical thinking piece, you are spot on that. So that's where your schools come in, and you teach people how to think critically. You teach them how to look at AI critically, because it doesn't always feed you good information. I constantly have to say, no, go back, because I know better. I've done the other research. So I know if it's feeding me something that's not accurate. And I'll say, go back and look at this. And it will do that, and it will correct itself. But there's no machine that man can make that will surpass who we are as humans, period. So that's my take. I've been on personal computers for a very long time. And from 1991, when I got mine, I have not ever been off almost even a day. Okay, as sad and sick as that sounds, it's just been an integral part of my work. So I have always used it. And what I thought America Online was back in those days, that's what AI is now. We thought it had the answer to everything, and it didn't. Neither does this. Neither does AI. So have no fear. It's a brave new world. That's all I had to say.
I
And
agree with you, Sharon, 100%. It doesn't scare me either as far as using it, but you guys are entirely right what you're talking about. You can't depend on it to do what it's, to do everything for you. But people need to learn how to use it because it's there. That's what's going to happen. So I'm with Sharon. We embrace it.
Yeah.
I'm with it, even though I got a lot of gray hair.
I think at the end of the day, I think the thing that we're, especially in this space, realizing, right, is you kind of you have to have some understanding of what's going on. Because again, it is inescapable. It's at the top of every Google search. It's expected in workforce situations. It pops up. It's all over social media in a scary sort of way. So that again, it just brings us back around to having that fundamental understanding of at least what it is and how it works is so critical. Whether or not you choose to use it, at least you understand what it is and why. So hopefully we're at least reducing the fear and concerns. I liked, I can't remember exactly what you said, Max, but I appreciated the thought too of thinking about when people are coming who already maybe have a negative connotation for how something can be used, like how do we mitigate the internet as a whole being the thing that has a negative connotation, and like foster, like, here are the ways that this can be really useful, again, whether or not you're choosing to participate. And if you are choosing to participate, here's the skills you need to know so you're using it effectively and using your brain and able to maintain your creativity and creative thinking and problem solving abilities. I did want to flag that we are at 2, a little bit after 2 here. Does anybody have any final comments or questions? I don't want to hold you if you need to hop off for other meetings.
I just want to
Let's
say,
say just you guys look up Fortran and see what that's where I started out, was with Fortran. So you can look that up.
I just want to say thanks. I always like getting to talk to people that are doing good work, and especially people with differing perspectives. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk with y'all. It's been nice. Thanks.
Yeah, I just thank you guys for the opportunity. It's been nice, and it's nice to have those conversations, all around, for sure.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, that's all. We have my next webinar is April 27th for grants and alternative funding strategies to further digital inclusion and workforce development. And then we have our Connected Communities Network meeting May 26th. And then our Pathways to Progress conference is May 14th. And other than that, if you want to be in contact with me or Annie, that's our emails. And I hope you all have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.